Kannabrand sir, Rahul sir.
Yes, sir.
We'll start now.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Uh, okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
yeah,
Kannabrand sir. Thank you. So,
yeah.
very good
Yeah.
afternoon, all. So, welcome back for the second session of this day. Kannabrand sir can take over the session.
Yes, sir. It's a good afternoon to all. I take the privilege to welcome all the participants from various parts of India for attending AICT sponsored STTP on machine learning and uh, IoT for industrial applications. I welcome once again all the participants from various parts of India on the behalf of management of Dr. NGP Institute of Technology, principal and head of the department and the faculties of AAA department. It's my pleasure to introduce the afternoon session resource person, engineer Ramachandra Karur. He completed his master's degree in engineering with a specialization in industrial electronics from NIT Karnataka, and he is also past president of International Society of Automation, Bangalore, and secretary of ISA Building Automation Division. He has more than 40 years of experience in industrial and process control fields. He worked various industries like Tata Institute for Fundamental Research, Siemens India Limited, HCL Technologies, and currently he is the founder and managing director of Sunlux Technologies Private Limited, Bangalore. Currently he is engaged working with industry, defense, and space vertical projects for critical control applications. Sunlux awarded Best R&D Organization in SME by Electronics Industries Association of India for the year of 2018 and 19. During his professional experience, he contributed many things for the industry and process control applications. The very few, a fault tolerant control system for environmental management for upcoming submarines, simulation and development of concentration based control algorithm of for CO2 absorbers for submarines, ship motion control feedback unit, SCADA system for substation automation for load scheduling and fault finding, and SCADA system for critical long-term availability, supervisory control and data acquisition from more than 500 channels of data for ISRO Bangalore for testing of satellites in thermo vacuum chamber and simulation of outdoor space environment conditions. So 90% of the satellites launched from 1999, including Chandrayaan and Mangalyaan, has been tested with the system developed by our resource person. Sir, it's privilege for you having a resource person for the session. Sir, session is yours, sir. Please proceed, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all for your participation across India. It's very nice to know that. And I also thank the NGP Institute for giving me this opportunity to present what we have done. So more than theory of IoT, I will be presenting more practical what Sunlux has implemented and what they are all working currently in different places of India. So that's what I will be presenting to you people so that you get the correct understanding of what IoT is and why it is being understood. So what is the mode? You would have questions in between or we should take it at the end. What is the plan?
We'll take it in the end, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you
So
so
I'll
much.
present myself, then we'll give some time. I planned one small demo as well. So hope it fits into the time what we have and then take it up for this thing. So I'll start my presentation. So I
Okay,
hope
sir.
I'm audible.
Yes, sir. Audible, sir. It's audible.
Okay. Is my screen audio visible now?
1 second, sir. It's
Yes, the screen is visible, sir.
Okay, right. Yeah, if there's any issues, let me know so that we can. So this is what has been already told to you, what we have done. Thank you for my introduction. And I'm also thankful for the college for giving me this opportunity. So about Sunlux, a few things have been told. We also have some IPs. And why I'm mentioning this is with the current trend of Atmanirbhar Bharat, where a lot of Indian companies are required to contribute. And we are happy that we are one of them and we have been contributing. And I saw some of your faculty, the speakers are from IGCAR. We also have about 10 to 15 systems working at IGCAR in the remote test systems. So this is what we have done so far. And we also, I'll also present the thermo vacuum chamber, what I mentioned here for your better understanding as a IoT part. So this is the award what we got for the best R&D. We contributed and saved almost $10 million for the Indian defense sector for giving the navigation feedback for their submarines. So this project was all indigenously.
Hello, sir. Your voice is not audible. Rahul, sir.
Now it is better.
Yes, sir. Now it's okay, sir.
Yeah. So mainly, I was saying that.
Rahul, sir.
Yes, sir. It's okay, sir. Audible, sir.
Okay.
Sir, you continue, sir.
Okay. So this award function for which we contributed for the navigation feedback of the thing. As I said, it's more relevant here because a lot of things are now being made in India, and we are in a small way contributing for the Indian defense and the space sector. So this will be my agenda. I would like to introduce some part of International Society of Automation, where I am part of it. And this is also more helpful for all the colleges and the universities because it's a non-profit organization working towards the development of faculty as well as students. So just like to present that part, maybe 1 or 2 slides. Then we'll look at what are the IoT ingredients that are required. And we'll also see why IoT is required and why it is becoming popular. And the basic part of the IoT is sensors. Then we'll say IoT details, then security, IoT case study for Excite battery production, then case study for thermo vacuum testing of satellites. So this is my agenda. I hope this meets your requirements. So let's talk about ISA in a slide or two. I'm not sure how many of you know about this part because International Society for Automation is focused on developing the knowledge base with different kinds of contribution. There is a network of professionals who are working towards the benefit of automation professionals. So there is also quite about 30,000 members across the world. Then the mission is just very simple, become standard automation globally for and also certifying industry professionals because now a lot of professionals want to be sure that what they deliver is validated by some of the industry specialists. That's what they do. And education and training. So there's a lot of trainings that are conducted. Then publishing of books and standards. And there are also conferences and exhibitions held. So ISA helps a lot of companies to strategize their plan in the automation with the standards and the trends that are there in the automation. So it's headquartered in USA. I am part of Bangalore division, which is one of the major division of India. So for students, it is just $10. So you get a lot of benefits because of this ISA membership. The technical divisions are there for IoT, for power systems, for chemical engineers. So there are different divisions which people can select from. Then there are also leadership opportunities. You can be a student advisor in your college. You can take up the local section leadership program. You can be part of the executive committee, then contribute for the automation universally. Then there's also a member directory which helps you to get connected. Then use of ISA membership logo, which is quite prominent and important in automation field. Then ISA connected technical discussion forum. So there is a ISA like LinkedIn, they have come up with ISA Connect, and this helps in getting all the automation professionals connected. And there is an expert directory for you to look at and get as and when required informations as well as consulting. Then there are a lot of standards that are universally accepted. ISA, IEC, BIS, British standards, they all form a common platform where these all standards are developed. Then very important for all the student sections what are there, like we have training courses, then there is a certified automation professional course, then there is other associate professional courses. And luckily for us, PSG College in Coimbatore as well as Kumar Guru College are part of our Bangalore division. They're affiliated to us and they're working with us. So this is another slide what I will share just to give you more information. What does an industry look at? They want fundamentals and to start developing, and they want people who can do the troubleshooting. So what ISA does, it gives a hands-on, unbiased expert instructors. They are available to create this skilled force. Then objective skill assessments. So some company wants to, like say an oil and gas company wants to hire some automation professional, or a chemical industry wants to hire a professional. So they want to make sure they get the right person. So ISA gives them a platform where certified automation professionals can get qualified. And this is a universally accepted course. It is apart from the bachelor's degree. This gives you more practical exposure. Then the best practices is another thing what industry looks at. So there are a lot of conferences and exhibits organized by ISA that helps in industry for doing this. And continuing education for, now the education doesn't end. So all the industries look for the continuation of training and education, which ISA does by publishing a lot of books, then widely spread magazines, which they produce a monthly and quarterly newsletters, which help in gathering the knowledge and accumulating. Operational excellence is another part which contributed by the standards from ISA. So these are all the benefits. I would like any of your people are interested to become members as well as a college to take up this as one of the things. So I was the past president for ISA Bangalore. Then currently I work as a secretary for the building automation section division of US and contribute for the automation part. As all of you are from the place where are looking for IoT, this is the right place for you to learn what the standard says, how do we address each and every issue of the plant. So this is the knowledge what the students are required when they go to the company. And as a faculty, you should be definitely required to know how these things are practiced, and you are able to teach this to your students. And we actively participate in the colleges. I have been part of the faculty development program for last 10 years in different colleges. I have participated. So I hope this college also gets benefited with ISA, because I'm not the only person. There are hundreds of professionals like me who can come to help you, because they come from different industries and they are not confined to any brands. They don't say Siemens or ABB or whatever. They are members of ISA and they give you the right kind of platform for the knowledge. So this was a brief thing about ISA, because I'm part of it. I definitely wanted to share what good things you can get out of this from the thing. So now looking at the IoT part, which is the technical part I would like to share. This is about 40 minutes. So then we'll have about 5-10 minutes for questions. So the IoT ingredients, what is most important in IoT is the sensor, because without sensor, we can't do much. So how do you define a sensor? So it is basically a sensor would like to define as an input device which has a physical inputs and gives you a signal output. So it can be pressure, temperature, it can be proximity, it can be accelerometer, pressure sensor, light sensors, ultrasonic sensors. They all have physical inputs, but they give you output which can be understood by your electronics and in turn by the IoT platform to decipher the value as well as do the analysis and tell whether the process in which it is used is right or wrong. So this is what is very important part of the thing. So why you think earlier to now there was no IoT was not so popular? So as I said, I started my career way back about 40 years back. So when there was no IoT, but I don't think so, because my first project for Tata Institute of Fundamental Research was MOSBA spectrometers, where there were 1024 channels of data, which was acquired and stored and transferred to analysis on a computer. But it was not called IoT that time because it was limited to the local place. There was local data acquisition, there was a controller, and most key factor why it didn't become popular was all these controllers were very expensive. The microprocessor from National Semiconductors was costing 5,000 rupees, where now you get it for 40 cents and 50 cents. So this is a major difference why IoT is picking up and why is it getting popular and why is it being used at multiple places. So despite of TIFR being a very premier institute and they had enough funds, so the microprocessor was kept in locker when I went out of the office in the evening because it used to cost 5,000 rupees. So, but now it is not the case. Even the kids have it. The colleges have it in multiple quantity. The students can buy it. So that's where the process of disseminating the knowledge has started, and we are able to bring up the IoT very easily. So this is one of the key factors for the IoT to get popular, where sensors have become also intelligent. Earlier, the sensors used to give you 4 to 20 milliamps or 0 to 10 volts, or there used to be a relay output which was communicating giving the voltages for status. But now it is not like that. Every sensor is become very intelligent. So we have sensors which give you different protocol communications. Modbus is one of the popular one in automation, but there are many. If you look at all home automation, there are Zigbee sensors, there are LoRa sensors. For light, we have the DMX sensors. So all this becomes very complex, and this is all accommodated with the current microcontrollers which can handle all these kind of communications. The most important communication for us is wired or wireless. Wireless can be Bluetooth, it can be Wi-Fi, it can be LoRa, different kinds of communication. As far as sensors is concerned, they communicate, they get connected on the equipment, the machines, process equipments, and then the temperature, pressure, or whatever flow, position, humidity are measured, and this is being communicated to data acquisition system. As you all know, data acquisition systems are also becoming very, very small and very low powered, where there are battery operated stuffs. They can be put very near to the equipment. Unlike earlier, there used to be very large systems where they had to be connected. There was a signal conditioning section, there was data acquisition system, the analog to digital conversion, then processing of the data. This all made a big chunk of electronics. But now a single chip can do all this. Sometimes it also has a built-in sensor for temperature. So all this important for IoT because we need the information in large volume. Yeah, as you see, the numbers of sensors, as you say, some 20 billion, 30 billion, this kind of numbers are coming up. So when they connect, they cannot be connected by wires. They cannot give you 4 to 20 milliamps. They can't give you 0 to 10 volts. They need to be wirelessly connected. And as well, they need to be intelligent to identify problems locally. Earlier, the number of sensors were less, so there were enough people as maintenance engineer who could handle. But now it is very large numbers, so they need self-diagnostics. They should do self-curing as well as indicate what is the status very actively so that the system knows about it. So you know about the sensors. I'll also show a small picture of what the sensor could look like. So the sensor would consist of a sense device. It can be strain gauges, it can be diaphragms, it can be just a limit switch. All those things get connected to the sensor, and from there is a microcontroller which operates on battery or supply voltage, normally in the range of 5 volts, 12 volts, 24 volts. So there is a power converter which is required for these sensors. Then it gets connected to a data acquisition system. The data acquisition system has is essential basically because we need to do a lot of data processing. The sensors by themselves can give you data, but we need data processing to do analytics. Now we have seen that a lot of different kinds of data acquisition systems are available. People are knowing about programmable logic controllers, distributed control systems, then PCI based systems that work on the computer itself. There are microcontrollers. There are Versa modular European standard data acquisition systems which are used by military sectors because of the longevity requirement as well as reliability. There are CPCI systems. There are VPC systems. They all become data acquisition systems. So they have very good signal conditioning as part of it. These are standard forms. Earlier, a lot of signal conditioning were built on customized base. Now they have standard. So if you look at people have 16 digital inputs, 4 analog inputs, 16 analog inputs, like that. Different commercially ready-made data acquisition system modules are available from which you can build the system to put it together so that we can start acquiring the data very quickly. And there are also programming languages for this. The PLCs have IEC 61131 as a standard language, wherein we have structured text, we have the ladder diagram, then we have the C functions as the things, function blocks. So all this makes life very easy for the current engineers to acquire data. That's another reason why IoT is getting popular. Otherwise, every sensor, every bit had to be coded. And this microcontroller coding was not very easy earlier. Now they all accept C language and they have operating systems. So a lot of infrastructure issues are already taken care when you start doing data acquisition. So data acquisition is a very critical part of any IoT form. And then we need to transfer this data, whatever is acquired, after doing some statistical or go-no-go or machine learning kind of a thing, after timestamping and anomaly detection, to the cloud. So in the cloud, there is a lot of infrastructure that is available. It can be on-premise cloud, or it can be a public cloud like Amazon or Azure or whatever is the thing. So there is a connectivity between the cloud and the edge gateway. The edge gateway is very key factor because it does some local analytics as well as transfer the data to the cloud through different protocols. Very popular one is CQAP or MQTT, which are used. MQTT is one of the key communication thing. So once you have the protocol, then the media comes into picture. It can be on Wi-Fi or it can be on cellular network with 3G or 4G connectivity. So there are a lot of systems which are remotely managed, which need this cellular connectivity. So all these are acquired by the cloud, and the cloud can reside anywhere in the world. but a lot of countries don't like to share the data. So some clouds are residing on the uh, in the factory itself, like railways or any defense sector like to have the data confined to their own usage. So the cloud infrastructure is required to run in both the places, on premise or on the cloud. I'll just show you one simple what we built. This was built for mainly Dubai airport, where they had a lot of batteries and the batteries to be monitored, as well as the DG sets to be monitored, and the DG operation was to be managed and controlled. So what is first important factor that we look at? There has to be an hardware to acquire the data from the battery. So mainly the battery voltage or the battery current. So that is collected by the sensor, and it has to be very low powered because it has to run on the battery power, and it should also be very small so that it doesn't clutter the battery thing, and it should also help in changing very quickly because all the batteries are put in quantities and we can't keep on doing a lot of work there. So these are all the criteria which were taken care. So we use the blockchain for connecting the secured part of it, because the way airport, this is put on the runway part for monitoring their batteries. So they're very key that we take care of all the security aspects of it. So the anomaly detection is very important part for IoT, because it's not just enough if you get the data. So if you collect huge amount of data, somebody has to analyze and make sense out of it. So there are a lot of systems that are available which will help you to do the analysis. It could be statistical analysis or a big data, or anomaly detection is one of the part which we find. If any, it's not good enough if I say the temperature should be 30 degrees, but now it is 32 degrees, and hence I give an alarm, because that is not good for an IoT, because in very large volume you have got sensors and alarms. So we need to manage these alarms. So that's where we need to do some machine learning, understand if this temperature at this point of time for this process, is it high or low, and then give an alarm. It is not just level sensing and giving you alarms. So this is one key part what all of you should know as part of IoT platform. We always want to make sure that whatever the process followed is right, as well as alarms generated are used for the right purpose. So then comes the local cloud, or the cloud on platform, I mean on the public cloud like Amazon or something. We need a very highly scalable database, because this is one of the key factors for IoT, where today I have connected only Dubai airport, but tomorrow I might connect all the airports of India and monitor their batteries. So I can't run for hardware at that point. So I need a scalable hardware. So that's how the cloud platform becomes very usable, because I don't have to buy the servers, I don't have to buy the network, I don't have to buy the security aspects of it. It's all available. I only subscribe and start using it. So this is a very standard requirement for any IoT platforms, but the key is the application, what application you are using and how this application is built, and how is this application provided. Is it one-time cost, or is it based on devices? Because the business models are changing, because nobody is ready to pay very high money for one installation. They want to distribute the cost. So it becomes more subscription model many a times for the IoT deployment. So what other things you people think is very important when how IoT can become popular? See, IoT is very easy when you do it in the lab, but just imagine you have got some hundreds of locations, thousands of sensors, thousands of gateways. You want to upgrade them. So you need a platform which will do on a one-click deployment and upgrades as and when required. Like your mobile phone, whenever there is a upgrade in the operating systems, you get an alert and you can update locally. No one comes and or you take the mobile to your shop for upgrading. So this how is required for IoT. So this is one of the key factors how IoT can get popular, and this has to be very secured because it can't be left to unsecured access. So these are the key factors what IoT platform should address, and these are already taken care by many of the standard available platforms. So then there is an security between the gateway to the database servers, then to the cloud servers, and then to the operation. These are all having different levels of security to ensure the safe exchange of data within the system itself. So having told you about what IoT is, how the sensor is important, how are we doing the connectivity, how the database is required, what kind of securities are allowed, what is the kind of power the devices need. We'll take up some case studies. I'll tell you about the Excite battery part of it. Once I show you this is the exact system what we are deployed at Dubai Airport for the battery monitoring. So every 2 batteries are monitored by one sensor. It monitors the current by Hall effect sensor, and it gets the voltage by differential input so that you get the voltage and the current, and they're all connected to the gateway. It can be through Bluetooth or it can be through wired connection, because when batteries are put in large numbers, wiring these sensors also is a very critical part. So the sensors also by themselves need to be wireless because they are in the very near vicinity. It can be on Bluetooth, or it can be on Wi-Fi, or it can be on LoRa, where there's a long range communication is required. So then they all get connected to a local gateway. So then they get connected to wireless battery, and wireless sensor gets connected to the cloud. And in the cloud, it can be residing in a data center, or it can be in your own premise with right infrastructure. Then you start debugging the problems and then identify the battery issues. What is very important for the battery and why it should be done? See, batteries in, say, in airport, the lot of control systems are powered by UPS. So if the UPS goes down, then the UPS can go down by just one battery going down. So this is what they want to prevent. So, but it is not easy. Like if you got home in UPS, the service provider comes and tests every 2-3 months, and he lets you know whether to add water or replace the battery. All these diagnostics are done. But this is not possible in airport, where you'll not believe me, they have almost about 20,000 batteries. So how do we keep track of all these batteries? It is IoT what will help, and the local control systems also help because they can monitor it locally. So this is to be predicted on a longer duration because battery voltage just going down once will not mean anything. So it has to be well understood that the battery is going down. So the charge monitoring is done by the controlled charging is done so that the battery doesn't get into a bad shape. The charge control is very important, and it has to be also monitored. Based on the charge and the accumulated total charge, people can predict the life of the battery. I can say this battery is going to go down after 1 month of operation. So then the people in airport or any critical application can change the batteries without much difficulty because it's not an emergency condition. So then why IoT is required at all, like why is it? It allows it to integrate not only the sensors, not only the data acquisition system. Now IoT has come in where you can integrate the entire system downstream to the IT infrastructure and become one common platform for the entire business. So this helps a lot in terms of making it connected factories, connected uh, process. So that's where people are deriving more benefits. So we always talk of connectivity, then connected factories. So the key factor here is Industry 4.0, which is revolutionized the complete factory automation. Industry 4.0 came from Germany. The industry, they called it as a fourth generation, the first, the second, and the third, wherein fourth is this IoT, which is based on the connection between sensors to the ERP. So that's where it's called as Industry 4.0. So how does it help? Why one should go for IoT at all? Now people need to be sustainable. So when you sustain, then only you can survive. The sustainability comes like earlier a device was sold at some price, but of late, if you see the prices, like say for example, the TV itself, the price, these are coming down. How do people manage this? Because the hardware is same, people are same, but the way it is managed is different. I used to produce 10 TVs in the factory. Now I'm able to produce 100 TVs because I have got connected. I can manage my equipment very well, my capital equipment very well. I can also manage my customers very well. So this gives sustainability to business. So this digitalization is helping people to make their business sustainable. So that's one of the major reasons why they need IoT. And they also have to be more competitive. So they cannot put in same manpower for production of first 100 and the next 1,000, because the next ones have to be much cheaper. So they make it automated so that it becomes more competitive. And it also becomes more competitive because it is predictable. I know I can produce 10 units per day, whereas in manual, we can't guarantee that I'll produce 10 because it all depends on individuals. The most and the highest part of people's requirement of today is reliability. You would like your mobile to last for 10 years, your laptop to last for at least 5 years, and any other device that you buy at home, be it including the water heaters, you would like them to be lasting long. So reliability is required to be built in into all the devices. So this IoT will help you in making it reliable in it, because you are able to measure multiple parameters. You are able to do the testing remotely. You are able to do 100% testing in many cases, because the process has got fastened, and then your time required is very small, and the records are very genuine because there is no manual entry. So all those are becoming very critical parts to help the reliability of the product, and also repetitivity, because repetitivity is very essential, because we have to ensure that all the products produced are same throughout the life of the product. So then enhanced field services, because people are looking for field services that are remotely supported. I would like my mobile to be repaired remotely, and I would like my equipment to be repaired remotely. All this is adding up a lot of process things. Then quick process to make customized requirements. You must have heard that people of pharmacy are talking about producing tablets as per the user requirement. Like say, my BP is of this kind, so they can produce a tablet of a particular requirement. This is all possible with IoT, because you are able to connect the customer to the equipment and produce the equipment. So these are the few important parts of digitalization. So the IT and OT integration, which all of you know, is very essential, because the IT used to take care of the customer relation, the warehouse, the enterprise research management, manufacturing execution systems, and the application. And the OT used to take care of the devices, the equipment, and the production, and the different mechanical processes that are involved in production. So this now needs integration, IT and OT. As you know, the strategy, the plan, the company financials are all very critical. So you connect down to the OT system, And if you lose out on the security aspects of it, it's a very bad part. So definitely it needs to be addressed, because if we want to IoT, then this have to be integrated, and both have to be equally reliable. The IT-OT integration is one of the big challenge people are working over last 10 years. And when we did this project for Exide, we had a big challenge too to sort this out. Sorry. So then different steps in IoT implementation. So there are a lot of legacy systems, there are a lot of earlier systems which already have some sensors which are 4 to 20 milliamp, 0 to 10 volts. So you need to build some kind of local intelligence to connect these devices to the gateway, then gateway to the cloud. So the legacy equipment handling is one of the key factors for implementing of IoT. Then the protocols and communication, because a lot of protocols, some of the protocols are very customized, so you don't have an access to that. So people are now coming up with publicly open protocols. Modbus is very open. BACnet is another thing what is open for building automation. Then OPC is another platform which is open. So all such protocols are essential for communicating from the device to the data acquisition to the cloud. Then the location of the equipment also becomes very important. How you want to connect it? You want to connect by wired, you want to connect by 3G, or you want to connect by Bluetooth, all matters. So location of the equipment is another factor what you need to take care when you want to think of IoT implementation. And also there are other things like you want to mount a vibration sensor on a very large turbine or a motor. So it creates a lot of vibration. So how do we address this? So location of the sensor and equipment becomes very critical. Then how do you get this data, right data? Because if there's a lot of vibration and if you get the wrong data, then it's a problem. Then security is the last factor what we need to look at implementing. A lot of people are shying away because they're afraid that their systems will be hacked and they'll not be able to do, and it has happened. And it's an ongoing process. It's nothing, nobody can say my system is 100% secure and nobody can do this system, but we need to take care how well you address the current issues up to date so that we don't have the current problems. So security is another aspect what is required for implementing of IoT. So there are different ways to address this which are taken care. So when you want to do IoT implementation, you know the process to some extent. You do not know the process 100%. Like say you want to generate a turbine functionality with 10 megawatt hydraulic plant, then you need to know the entire characteristics of the turbine. So how do you do this? You can create the digital twin to build this IoT platform for AI as well as machine learning. So this can be done by modeling, then artificial intelligence, live data, and you also need a lot of historical data, though it is manually entered. So we need to collate all this data and build a historical data trend to create the digital twins so that we can address and make a similar system that is existing so that you can build the efficiency into the system. So your old data is very important for this particular function. So IoT also comes in different layers. As I showed you the architecture, there's a perception layer where there's a physical layer where you connect the devices. There's a network layer which is connecting the different devices, smart buildings, whatever is required. And the application layer where the specific devices are built and various applications are run. And it can be, and that's where the IoT platform can be deployed. So this is the application layer. Then this can be smart cities, this can be smart homes. So this is the application layer, what is critical. The transport layer is another thing where it transfers the sensor data from the perception layer to the processing layer and vice versa through the networks such as wireless, 3G and other things. The processing layer is also known as the middleware, where it stores analysis and process data in a huge amount of data that come from transport layer. It has to be managed and value to be got for this data. That's where a lot of analytics, machine learning, and anomaly detection comes into play. So as I said, always security is the hindrance. So we have security, we need right from data aggregation, your sensor has to be secured, your data routing has to be secured, your access control, key management has to be sent. This thing all has to be encrypted. The application layer, the middle layer, the operating system, and the hardware layer. There are also secured boots. All the hardware nowadays doesn't boot simply. There is a secured boot connection which will help in booting. So this is what is very essential. So I'll move faster because there are a lot of other things. So there are a lot of ISA standards that are available, and ISA also conduct security trainings for the people. So Industry 4.0. So what we need to take care when we deploy, there is no single point of failure. There is a network load balancers. Then there has to be database replication. Then we need to connect to things like SAP. Then device connectivity. SAP is one of the ERPs which I have considered, but there could be any other manufacturing process listing. So for the Exide battery manufacturing, they have an auto plant, auto batteries, and VRLA batteries. So they are all connected and managed by PLCs. They are in way connected to the IoT gateway, wherein we do a lot of data analysis and then connect to the SAP system where the decisions are made. So the Industry 4.0 architecture, which is available very easily, but what one needs to understand is your base level to the high level, it has to be secure, and also the data acquisition has to be as fast as required for different processes. If you want to do vibration, we need a very fast data acquisition. You want to do temperature, it can be slower. So all this understanding is very essential for industry architecture, and it's commonly available. So I'll not do much, spend time on this. So I'll just want to spend some time on the entire Exide battery thing. So they are all different processes that are connected. There are PLCs, there are existing PLCs, there are new PLCs, there are different equipment at the bottom. Like there are barcode scanners, there are weighing scales, there are ovens. They all need to be connected to the cloud for better understanding, and that in turn to be connected to the cloud for analysis. So this all complete connection from bottom to the end has to be secured. So this is what we have done. This is a legacy factory. So the old PLCs did not have the right kind of connectivity. So we need to do some gateways to be introduced. And there were some equipment which are manually handled. So we need to give a panel PC to do this manual operation and enter into the system. I'll just show you a few of them. So what is the battery manufacturing process? There is a melting pot. So then there is a casting, then oxide making, there's the electrode making, then there is a drying process, then the initial assembly is done, then the batteries are filled with the acid, that the entire battery is charged, then there's the air leak test, then electrolyte leveling is done, then air pressure testing is done, then final test, and then it is to be dispatched. So this entire process in the Exide factory at Hosur, we are automated with the IoT kind of infrastructure, which I shared earlier, the previous slide. So I'll just go through one of the process. So if you want to do melting, what happens? The operator, the lead alloy is received from the stores and is added to the melting pot. So the operator shall scan the barcode on the lead alloy, then pour this into the casting machine, and then the melting starts. Then this information is transferred to the SAP through the MES through our device. So this entire connectivity. Now, earlier nobody knew how much of lead alloy was used, which make lead alloy was used, and how much of lead alloy was used. Now this entire connectivity up to the SAP, so the management and the process knows what kind of data is there in the shop floor and how it is connected up back. And this is the casting process. Here also the same case. The operator loads the manufacturing kit on the skid. Once the skid is loaded completely, the operator uses the nearest POD, this is point of display and contact, wherein he enters the skid number, then this shall be connected to the system. And if one of the testing fails, then it is reported by the PLC that it has failed, and the operator confirms this onto the laptop, or sorry, on the point of display, which is a small display and controller. And this information goes to the cloud through the MES. So this is what is the entire process of testing the batteries, which will go through from bottom to the top. So similarly, in the grid aging ovens, the temperature is measured. This was manually operated. So the person measures the temperature and everything manually and enters into the system. And this gets transferred to, I wanted to give you this example because in all the factories, it's not possible to have the entire connectivity very easily. So we need to do the connectivity very easily from top to bottom, some things manually, some things automated, wherein the SAP gets this information for the final decision. So that's where I thought I'll put this. This is one of the live case where manual entries are made as part of IIoT. So paste making is another process what needs to be automated. So the grid manufacturing is the critical part of the thing. So this was totally automated by, there are digital calipers, then large digital weighing scales, and then barcodes. So they're all integrated into a common system. Earlier, they were manually recorded. Now there is a common PLC system which gets all this information, then transfers the status of the grid to the management of software, the MES software, as well as test software, where the reliability aspect is analyzed, as well as the manufacturing process, whether the complete time was used, there are different timings for the processes, where they are met, all this kind of information is shared. So this is the IoT trend. Ultimately, everything is planned from right from data acquisition, monitoring, to have the next is level is intelligence and understanding from the information. Then patterns and transparency, AI is very important. Next will be the predictive maintenance. After that, the autonomous action. So this is the roadmap which is there, and things are happening. You must have heard of autonomous vehicles, and different processes are automated. And the COVID situation is demanding a lot of automation, which allows you to do your production easily. So this becomes very essential part at this particular juncture of time. I hope the Excite case study, because of the limited time I had to run through, was good enough. I would like to share a few slides on the temperature data acquisition system for the ISRO for testing of their satellites. So this is one of the chambers in which the final assembled satellite is put. So there are about thousands of channels of temperature data. There is pressure, there is vacuum, there is also vibration sensors, and also noise sensors, which are there as part of this. And our system does only the temperature control. It is managing about 500 closed loops so that the temperature is maintained within the range. So this satellite is put into this, and all the sensors are connected. So as I said, there are 512 channels of thermocouples or RTDs, and then there are about 500 numbers of 128 numbers of programmable power supplies, which are being controlled through our Modbus protocol from the controller. So I'll show you those configuration diagram. This is the entire configuration of the system for ISRO. There are it is spread over about 5 kilometers, the testing, and there are different people looking at this and differently. And the satellites are also tested remotely, like Japan, US, and all give some of the small satellites that are to be tested, because our testing costs are much lower and our system is much more rugged and reliable. So they give the satellites, they do the testing at ISRO, then this is watched remotely by people sitting across the world. So there is the high level of fault tolerance. So what is fault tolerance? If something one fails, the other thing should take over and operate the system. So there are 3 servers that are connected. One is the database server, then there is a replication server, and there's a web server. And they're all connected on a, you can see red and blue lines. There's a redundant network, there are redundant switches, and there are redundant power supply controllers, and there are redundant sensors, mainly thermocouples that connected to the data acquisition systems. So they're all connected. A test plan is made. This is made by the thermal engineers and loaded into the system. So once you load the profile into the test profile, then the satellite has to be tested totally automatic. So for that, there are different configurations that are to be made so that the test is run for about 25 days. So the people do only observations. They do not do any settings. So how do you do the temperature control then? It is by auto PID. All the parameters for the PID are set by the system itself, because tuning 500 channels will take almost 1 week. So we have the auto PID for this. So there's a user login because it has to be very secured. So they need to look into this system very critically. Then there is a configuration screen. As I said, you can run different tests so that you can, once you run the test, load the test, it is to be secured and run it for 25 days. So there is no manual intervention. So there is an alarm screen because there are hundreds of alarms. So when they come, because temperatures to be managed within 0.5 degrees control with auto PID, so there are alarms. So how do we handle these alarms? How do we isolate these alarms? Because there are 10 people managing this. So, but they should not focus on alarm, but they should focus on the process. So the process is completely automated, and the test reports are created on an hourly basis, on a daily basis. So these alarms are there for the entire thing. It's not just for the process. It's not just to say that temperature is not okay or the vacuum is not okay. If any equipment is not okay, if any of the printers are not okay, if any of the parameters are not okay, it gives an alarm and it has to be managed. So then there is a interactive screen for managing the power supplies, because power supplies are controlled. So they are 0 to 10 volts and 4 to 20 amperes, 0 to 20 amperes. So they are managed with power control and voltage control remotely with the system. Yeah, the program is just loaded in the form of Excel to this system, and then it is run. So how does it become an IoT? Because this test is conducted remotely. The chamber lies about 2 to 3 kilometers away. Some of the observation is done locally, but a lot of things are done remotely. That's how this becomes an IoT. This we did it in 2000. So that's where I want to say the IoT is not just now, but it has been existing for long. So there is a PID screen where you set the PID parameters to start with. This is the initial setup. After that, these are all auto PIDs that are running. So there are a lot of user-friendly screens for identifying the different power supplies, temperatures, so that you know you are in the right part. So then there are printing that has to happen, and the printed reports have to go to the management. So this also is automated. Reports are produced with the different timelines. You could set the frequency of printing by doing 1 second or 1 minute or 1 hour. You want to acquire data at different locations and also print at different things. They're all configurable. This is the diagnostic screen for the entire system. For all the equipments, they're displayed with fault conditions. So this is a typical connection, how the rack gets connected to the power supply and the chamber. So for the temperature control, also there is redundancy. There are 2 controllers. If one controller fails, the other controller takes over without delay. That's how it is in hot standby mode. It is not redundant mode. And these are all managed remotely. And we support many times remotely for them to do the debugging for this. So these are the advantages of IoT, because I'm able to say what is going wrong in the test at Ahmedabad or Bangalore and do a good judgment and correct the system. So these are a lot of reports. Then you can also configure a lot of trends. So this becomes one of the key factors for our trending. Then our equipment can be judged based on these trends. And there are almost about 20 channels what you can observe on a real-time basis. So this is some of the trend analysis which you can zoom and test. So this is one important part which I wanted to share with you. All the satellites have limitations. So because they carry load cells, they carry cameras. So the temperature gradient from one end of the satellite to the other end cannot be more than the specified for that particular design. So the heat map is done on all the satellites that are tested to ensure that the gap is not more than 20 degrees or 5 degrees or 30 degrees as earlier configured by the user. So then these heat maps help them in a 3D format to make judgment, because see, there are 500 heaters and there are 500 sensors. How do we control these temperatures to be within 0.5 degrees for the entire setup? This is using this 3D mapping as well as the auto PIDs and monitoring. That's how we maintain, and the entire satellite is tested, and different parts are different temperatures. It is not that the entire satellite is at a common temperature. So these are all the key factors, and they're all managed remotely sitting into their control room. And this is an IoT which is implemented almost 20 years back. So this is the scaling what they do at the time of testing, so that they ensure that the thermal degradation doesn't happen, the thermal runaway doesn't happen. So this is the Mars orbiter which is tested with our system. And this is one of the IRS satellites which is also tested in our system, and also the payloads are tested with our systems at Ahmedabad. So thank you. So I had to run through a bit quickly on few of the things because of the time limit of 1 hour. So anybody is interested later can contact me or send me an email. I can share more data as well as give you some practical understanding of the system so that you can implement such things, as well as teach your students the right thing so that they are ready for going to the factory. Thank you.
Sure, sir. Sure, sir.
Sir, we find some questions in chat box. Shall I read it out?
Yeah.
Yes, the first question: how to ensure the quality of the system, like physically attributed or working life of sensor equipments?
See, the sensors always come with some mean time between failures. So there are reliability analysis, what needs to be done, what kind of sensor you are using, what kind of tolerance it has got, and what kind of connectivity it has got, and how quickly you can get. So there is a lot of standards that are available as military standards as well as general standards, which can be used for deciding the reliability of the sensors.
Okay, sir. So next question: what is the importance of machine learning?
Now I said right that we want to take care of the batteries in the Dubai airport. Okay,
Yes, sir.
the battery fails. How do you say battery fails? Because the UPS dies, or you're not able to get the right voltage, then it dies. So now I want to predict when the battery is going to fail. So the battery life is dependent on the charge content in the battery, as well as the status of the electrodes and the charging current and the discharging current. And this is not same for all the batteries. You use different batteries, different makes, different capacities. They have different kinds of this charge current, battery charge systems, as well as voltages. So now how do I set my parameters for IoT? That when should I say the battery is bad? When do I say battery is good? How do I predict that battery is going to fail in 1 month? So for this, there has to be a lot of data that is required, and this has to happen by learning the machine. So now what I will do for the first 1 month, I will do the machine learning. That what is machine learning? I'll see what is the charge current, what is the discharge current, what is the voltage, when does the battery misbehave. So this becomes a machine learning. Now I have learned that under such circumstances, the battery is going to fail. So this becomes one of the test point for me, which is attributed to that particular battery, and decide on the parameters that are good and bad for this. That's how the machine learning is required. This is one aspect of it. Like say, suppose you want to do the production with a CNC machine. How do we do this? We need to be repetitive, right? So I need to know that how my machine behaves at different times. And this cannot be, you cannot generate an algorithm for this because it's all dynamic. It all depends on what kind of material you are cutting or grinding. So this is all learned through machines. So the machine learning also learns the hardness of the material, you're doing drilling of the machine. So what is the drilling force required, current use, all this will help in deciding the right process. So that's how machine learning becomes very essential, to predict based on the real characteristics of the process.
Okay, sir. Sir, we move to next question, sir.
Yes.
How to adapt in digital twin technology in industry?
Yeah, that's what I said. Like there are two motors, right? I build a digital twin for one. It depends on what is the kind of application. The digital twins are built based on the application. Like now I want to decide the motor characteristics as well as the process characteristics. So now I need to know the motor perfectly. So one way is you got a lot of design parameters for the motors. So based on theory, you generate a lot of conditions and then simulate, or you do the machine learning, you collect the data, then build. So then it becomes digitally equivalent to what is there in the field. So that motor, you start that process and the data, you start using it for optimizing the process. So that's how the digital twin becomes very important.
Okay, sir. Sir, next question, sir. Can we adapt the AI to IoT? Can we adapt the AI to IoT?
Yes, 100%. AI is a very essential thing, artificial intelligence. So this is machine learning, artificial intelligence, or they're all key part. Like say if I'm operating in a nuclear power plant, I want to operate some things inside the radioactive cell. So now artificial intelligence is very essential. This remotely monitored, but I will say more by my senses, like this change has to happen. So that's where the artificial intelligence is very much essential, so that I know how to react to a particular problem.
Okay, sir. So next question. Sir, can you suggest few tools to implement digital twin?
Pardon?
Can you suggest few tools to implement digital twin?
I am myself not a digital twin expert. I will ask my team to suggest to you. I'll share my email ID. What are the right tools? Let's see, modeling is the main part, which are required for tooling. So we use Modelica, the open tool for doing this digital twin simulation and other things. Other things which are standard are MATLAB, wherein you use these things. But any new tools that are used, so I can ask my experts to suggest you anything.
Okay, sir. So next question. Did process control industries are working towards industrial IoT and industry 4.0?
Yes, they are very much working. Oil and gas, chemical factories, and as I said, this the current one what we did for Exide. So they're all working towards this. They're all process industries. See, the process is very critical because, like say, you take for example, steel production, right? The ingredients that go to form the steel is very important. So IoT makes them a lot easier. Otherwise, earlier it used to be people dependent. Now it is no more people dependent. So IoT is definitely helping them, and they're trying to adopt. So even the entire casting process is being done as a digital twin and modeled to get the right steel quality.
Okay, thank you, sir. Shall we go to next question, sir?
Yes.
What is the main functional difference between digital twin and a cyber physical system?
See, digital twin, cyber physical system is what you realize, and the digital twin is made in comparison with the real system. So that's where the digital twin comes into picture, where you realize in working system by modeling, so that you can use this for optimization.
Okay, sir. Sir, algorithm used to check the battery status.
Yeah, basically, see, they check the charging current, discharge current, the charge content of this. So these are all the parameters that are used to judge the battery status.
Okay, sir. So next question. Is this ISA support smart grid technology?
Pardon?
Is this ISA supports smart grid technology?
See, ISA is an organization. It's a non-profit organization. It is basically a standards organization. And there are a lot of divisions in it. There's an IoT division, there's a chemical division, there's a power division. So there, different experts are there across the world, and there they contribute for different divisions and technology platforms. So that's how the power division supports the smart grid part of it.
Okay, sir. So one final question, sir. What is the main features in digital twin technology compared to IIoT?
See, digital twin is the starting point, right? It is not going to be used permanently as a this thing. Digital twin is the initial learning. IIoT is a end-to-end platform, right from my production to my ERP. Who is on leave, what is going to be produced, how it is going to be produced. This is the IIoT connectivity. Earlier, IoT was limited to the PLC and the DCS, where you used to run some algorithms to get the right product out. But now it goes up to the final order booking. It goes to the right ERP for analyzing the cost part of it. So there are two different aspects of it. IoT is end-to-end for business, and digital twin is for adopting a particular process and putting the right part to get the best out of the system.
Okay, sir. Sir, next question is, how optimization is achieved in process industry with IoT?
It's again a lot of algorithms, as well as machine learning, as well as the data. There are a lot of historical data you get, right, because of the IoT. You're acquiring temperature at 2 seconds, they're acquiring vibration at milliseconds. So all this data is got into the IoT, where you can run an algorithm and decide the optimization curve. Like say, if the vibration is different in a particular equipment, you are able to analyze the data with the IoT because you have collected the data. You can compare it with a gold standard and say now the vibration signals are not as required, hence this is not right. So then you start optimizing. Now, should I run the motor at this speed? Should I do the process at this temperature? All these decisions can be made. That's how the optimization is done.
Okay, sir. Sir, one of our participants asking how to get membership in ISA.
So it's on the web. If you type International Society of Automation, you get, then you can decide based on your location, you can decide where you want to be affiliated. There is Maharashtra, there is Gujarat, there is Karnataka, there is Tamil Nadu. From different places, you can select one of them and be part of this.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Almost you answered all the questions in the chat box, sir. Also, you got many feedback in the chat box. They said the session is more informative and more advanced things you shared with those people. Also, it may help them to make further research activities. Also, help them to teach to the students. Also, to spread the technology around the globe. The participants around the globe, they enjoyed your session. Also, they commented that your session is wonderful session. You shared many data regarding this IoT and machine learning applications, and they said your session is more interactive within a small duration of time. They are expecting more knowledge from you in the future, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you for.
Yeah. Thank you for your feedback.
Thank you so much, sir.
Also tell me if something was not right or you wanted something different, so that next time it can be a better one. Thank you all for the great listening to me for this time, and look forward for meeting you all again. Thank you. And
Thank you.
you can
Thank you
write me an email for whatever information and this thing you like. Thank you.
Can you share your mail ID, sir?
Yeah, this is, how do I share it? Shall I send it to Jagannathan or?
No, sir, I will share it, sir.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hello,
Yeah.
sir.
Sir,
Yeah.
sir, good afternoon. This is Chandan Barik from Bhubaneswar, sir.
Yeah, tell me.
Sir, actually, can I take your PPT? Because
Yeah,
the session was very, very wonderful, and that topic was very, very much essential for nowadays. Okay, sir.
Thank
So
you.
really, I am so much impressed in your topic. So I
Thank you.
want PPT in this regard. So if
Yeah,
you
yeah,
provide
I'll
me, then I will.
Yeah,
I'll
I'll
be helpful,
share it
sir.
with NGP, Dr. Jagannathan. Then he can give it to you whatever the way.
Okay, okay.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Sure, sir. I will
Thank you,
send it.
sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Sir,
Thank
shall I
you.
post your mail ID in chat box, sir? RVK.
Sunluxtechnovations.com.
Yeah, sir.
You can share it or you want me to put it there?
Okay, sir.
I will put it in the chat box. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Mm. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you so much, sir, for a wonderful session. Thank you, sir. Rahul, sir, you can.
Yes, sir. Dear participants, I shared a feedback link for both the session, morning as well as afternoon session. Link in the chat box. Kindly fill it. But your attendance is depend upon the auto-generated attendance. Afternoon session, morning itself, we received maximum of 104 members. In afternoon, it is less compared to morning. We have selected around 205 peoples, but only we are getting 50% of participants attentive. Please kindly be active and attend the sessions, get the attendance, get your examination good result, and get your certificates. Your participants ID in the mail. I have attached the PDF in the morning. Also, twice I sent that PDF. You can find it in that. You need not to fill everything. You can fill last digit from starting from A and 3 digit.
So these are the instruction from AACT. So we want to stick on this instruction. That's why we are talking all those things, because they are very much concerned about all the instruction. Please cooperate all the participants so that we can go for the fruitful sessions tomorrow.
And
If you have
morning,
any clarification regarding feedback or whatever it may be, you can ask me now. Our faculty coordinators will address.
morning sessions, questions in the chat box can be answered, and the answers with the question will be shared in your mail tomorrow morning after receiving the answers from the resource person. And if any doubt regarding anything regarding this STTP, you can ask me. You can ask in chat box, or else you can unmute yourself and you can ask me.
Sir, can you please let us know how to enter participation ID?
Okay, so participation ID I send in a mail. You can find in a mail. If you have any doubt for today's session, you enter your full name and remaining things proper and use that participation ID, some dummy words. From tomorrow's session, make sure that you have a correct participation ID. For today's session, you enter something, I will solve those issues.
Sir, myself Gajendran. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Sir, myself Gajendran from Karpam College of Engineering.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Sir, shall we get this recorded video of the session, sir?
Once we
Because
get
morning.
yes, sir. Once we get a permission from a resource person, we will share it, sir. Without
Okay,
permission from the resource person, we should not share those things. So
Okay,
after getting the
sir.
permission, we will share it, sir.
So otherwise, we will produce a YouTube links for all those.
Sir, because nowadays the raining starts, in between we are getting out of interruption.
Sure, sir. We'll send a YouTube link, sir.
Okay, thanks a lot, sir.
Gajendra,
Thanks a
sir.
lot.
Sure, we'll send you.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.